It was a beautiful day by the Sea of Galilee. The sun glowed warmly over the water, and a gentle breeze carried the scent of the lake. People had come from all over, men, women, and children, gathering to see Jesus. Some had heard of his miracles and came seeking healing. Others were curious about this man who spoke with such wisdom and authority, and many simply longed to hear his teachings, words that stirred their hearts and filled them with hope. All day, Jesus spoke to the crowd, sharing parables and revealing the truth about God's kingdom. The people hung on to every word, their eyes fixed on him. Time passed quickly, and before they realized it, the sun had begun to set. That's when the disciples noticed something important. Everyone was hungry. They turned to Jesus and said, "Master, it's getting late. We should send the people away so they can find food in the nearby villages." It made sense. After all, feeding such a massive crowd was impossible, wasn't it? But Jesus had a different idea. He looked at his disciples and said, "Why don't you give them something to eat?" The disciples were stunned. Feed thousands of people? With what? They looked around, but all they could find was a small lunch. A boy had brought 5 small loaves of bread and 2 fish. Hardly enough for even a few people, let alone the multitude before them. Andrew, one of the disciples, hesitated but spoke up. "Lord, there is a boy here who has 5 loaves and 2 fish, but what is that for so many?" Jesus smiled, his eyes filled with kindness. "Bring it to me." The little boy, with simple faith, handed over his lunch. Maybe he didn't understand what Jesus was about to do, but he was willing to share what little he had. Jesus directed the crowd to sit down on the grass. Thousands of men, women, and children settled in, watching closely. Then Jesus took the loaves and fish, lifted his eyes to heaven, and gave thanks. The disciples watched in anticipation as he began breaking the bread and fish into pieces. And something incredible happened. The food didn't run out. Piece after piece, Jesus kept breaking, and there was always more. The disciples passed the food through the crowd, their amazement growing with every handful. People ate and ate, laughing, talking, and enjoying the unexpected feast. Soon, everyone had their fill. The children giggled with full bellies, mothers smiled at their little ones, and fathers marveled at the abundance. Jesus had taken what seemed like too little and made it more than enough. When the meal was over, Jesus told his disciples, "Gather the leftovers so that nothing is wasted." They went through the crowd, collecting what remained, and found 12 baskets full of leftover bread and fish, more than they had started with. This was a miracle. A simple meal had become a feast for thousands, all because of Jesus' power and the faith of a little boy who was willing to share. So, what does this story teach us? 1. Trusting God with what we have. Sometimes we feel like we don't have enough, whether it's time, money, strength, or talent. But in God's hands, even a little can be multiplied beyond our imagination. The boy's lunch seemed insignificant, but Jesus used it to bless thousands. 2. Generosity and faith. The boy could have kept his food, thinking, "It's too little to matter." Instead, he gave what he had, trusting Jesus. When we give, whether it's our resources, our kindness, or our time, God uses it to do great things. 3. God's provision. Jesus didn't just provide enough, he provided abundantly. God's blessings are not limited. When we rely on him, he provides more than we expect, often in ways we never imagined. 4. Jesus, the true bread of life. This miracle wasn't just about feeding hungry bodies. It pointed to something greater. Later, Jesus said, "I am the bread of life. Whoever comes to me will never go hungry." John 6:35. Just as the people needed food that day, we need spiritual nourishment that only Jesus can provide. Think about your own life. Have you ever felt like what you have isn't enough? Maybe you feel like you don't have enough wisdom, patience or resources to meet the needs around you. But this story reminds us God can take what we offer, no matter how small, and do incredible things with it. Maybe it's a simple act of kindness, a small word of encouragement, a willingness to help someone in need. Whatever it is, when placed in Jesus' hands, it can multiply beyond what we imagine. So, the next time you feel like what you have isn't enough, remember this story. With God, even a little can do great things.